3 police officers, 2 lawyers, and my entire family were staring at me, while my husband insisted I was mentally unstable. He told the court I had run away with a dangerous man after suffering another emotional breakdown. What he didn't know was that he had already destroyed his own life the moment he punched me at my sister's wedding, because that single punch made me call the one man he had spent years praying I would never call. My name is Solène Avery Kessler. I was 38 years old, and this is how the perfect husband everyone admired lost everything he had built. Chapter 1. The Call. I swore I would never make. On Saturday night, November 9, 2024, I sat at the family table inside North Shore Country Club in Lake Forest, Illinois, and smiled because my husband was hurting me where no one could see. My name is Solène Avery Kessler. I was 38 years old, and I had spent almost 3 years learning how to look calm while Damon punished me in public. Across the ballroom, my younger sister Talia was dancing with her new husband Noah Monroe. She looked radiant beneath the chandeliers, her white dress moving around her like light. Our mother Elaine Avery stood near the dance floor, accepting compliments as if she had personally arranged the happiness in the room. Our father Robert Avery was laughing with 2 of Damon's colleagues near the bar. Everyone loved Damon. At 42, he was a senior partner at Kessler Finch Architects and the lead architect on an $86 million hospital project. He knew how to remember names, shake hands, and make older men feel respected. My parents talked about him as if marrying him had been the smartest decision I had ever made. Under the tablecloth, his fingers were digging into the inside of my thigh. "Smile," he said quietly. I lifted the corners of my mouth. "Not like that." I tried again. Damon leaned closer, still smiling at the room. "People are going to think you are jealous of your sister. I am tired. You have been sitting down all evening." His grip tightened. I could feel each fingertip through the fabric of the dusty rose bridesmaid dress he had chosen for me. Damon had paid for the dress, our hotel room, and part of the reception. He had reminded me of that at least 6 times. "I paid thousands of dollars to help your family," he whispered. "You are not going to embarrass me tonight." My phone rested face down beside my plate. Damon preferred it that way. When it lit up, he wanted to know who had contacted me before I did. A full glass of champagne stood in front of me, even though I had not touched alcohol in months. Damon had poured it himself. He liked leaving evidence for stories he might need later. A bartender approached and noticed the untouched glass. "Would you prefer water, ma'am?" "Yes, thank you." He replaced the champagne with sparkling water and walked away. Damon watched him go. "Why were you looking at him like that?" "I was not. He asked you a question and you smiled." I said, "Thank you. You always have an explanation." My heart began beating faster. I knew the pattern. A small accusation became a question, the question became evidence, and the evidence became permission. I glanced toward Talia. She was laughing with Noah, surrounded by friends holding phones. I did not want her wedding remembered as the night her sister caused a scene. That was how I still thought then. Damon could hurt me, and somehow I was the one who might ruin the evening. "I need to use the restroom. 5 minutes," he said. "Do not stop to talk to anyone." I stood carefully and walked away from the table. I did not go to the restroom. I followed a quiet hallway past the courtroom and pushed open the door to the north smoking patio. Cold rain blew beneath the awning. The wind carried the smell of wet stone and leaves from the dark golf course beyond the terrace. I wrapped my arms around myself and tried to breathe. A few more hours, I told myself. Stay quiet. Get through the cake. Get through the photographs. Get into the car without making him angry. The door opened behind me. Damon had followed me. He shut the door and stood between me and the ballroom. "Were you hoping that bartender would come out here?" "No." "Then why are you hiding?" "I needed air." "You needed attention." His voice remained low. That was always worse than shouting. Damon rarely raised his voice where anyone might hear him. "You have been sulking all night," he continued. "You are making me look like an idiot at your sister's wedding." I moved backward until my shoulders touched the brick wall. "I am not trying to make you look like anything." His expression changed. It was only a small shift around the eyes, but I knew it. The punch came so quickly that I did not lift my hands. His skirt struck the right side of my jaw. My head snapped sideways and hit the wall behind me. Light flashed across my vision. Then my knees gave way. I landed on the wet stone with blood filling my mouth and a high ringing sound inside my skull. For several seconds, I could not understand where I was. Damon stood over me, breathing evenly. He adjusted the cuff of his shirt and looked toward the door to make sure no one had followed us. "Look what you made me do." He said it as if I had moved his arm for him. Rain blew across the patio and soaked the side of my dress. Damon looked down at the muddy fabric with disgust. "You ruined the dress." I pressed my hand against my jaw. Damon checked his watch. "You have 10 minutes to clean yourself up and get back to the table before they cut the cake." I stared at him. "If you make me take you home while I am still angry, you know what happens." He opened the door and stepped back into the ballroom. The music swallowed him. I stayed on the ground. Images returned in pieces. Damon blocking the basement door while I begged him to move. His fingers around my wrist until the bruises turned purple. 2 police officers standing in our kitchen while Damon explained that I had suffered a panic attack and fallen. My mother asking whether I had been drinking again because Damon sounded so worried on the phone. My father telling me marriage required privacy and patience. Damon always spoke slowly. I always shook. People trusted the person who looked calm. I looked toward the parking lot beyond the patio. If I got into Damon's car that night, I might not survive the weekend. That thought did not feel dramatic. It felt simple. I reached into the hidden pocket sewn into my dress and pulled out my phone. I did not call the police. They would ask questions. Damon would return before I finished answering them. He would tell them I was drunk, confused, and having another episode. He had practiced that story longer than I had practiced telling the truth. Instead, I dialed a number I had deleted in February 2020. I still remembered every digit. Across Chicago, Cassian Rourke was sitting in a private room beneath one of the restaurants owned by Rourke Logistics and Hospitality. He was 44 now. Malik Grant, his head of security, sat across from him with several men discussing a business problem that would never appear in an annual report. Cassian's private phone rang. He recognized my number, even though my name was no longer attached to it. He answered without speaking. For a moment, I could only listen to the rain. Then I forced the words through my swollen jaw. "Can you come get me?" Cassian heard everything I could not explain. The rain, my breathing, the way one side of my mouth would not move properly. He did not ask why I had called after almost 5 years. He did not ask what I had done. He did not ask why I had stayed. "Where are you?" he said. "North Shore Country Club, North Patio. Do not go back inside. Move away from the windows. Keep the phone open." He stood before the call ended. Cassian told Malik to contact a security team near Evanston and send them ahead. 2 SUVs were prepared. One of the men in the room reminded him that FBI agent Owen Hale had been tracking his movements for months. Cassian gave only 3 instructions. No visible weapons. No one touches Damon unless Damon attacks first. Get Selene out with witnesses. Back at the country club, Damon realized I had not returned. I heard the patio door open. "Selene," he called. His voice was gentle enough to fool anyone inside. I moved behind a large stone planter near the driveway entrance and crouched in the rain. Damon walked across the gravel. "Come out now and I will only lock you in the guest room tonight." His shoes moved closer. "Make me find you and I will finish the other side of your face." More than 20 minutes had passed since I called Cassian. For the first time I wondered whether I had waited too long. Headlights swept across the entrance. A black SUV stopped near the patio. Malik stepped out with another security officer. Neither man reached for a weapon. Malik placed himself between Damon and the planters. "Who the hell are you?" Damon demanded. "Medical help is on the way," Malik said. "Do not come any closer. She is my wife. That does not give you permission to approach her." Miriam Sloan, the country club's event coordinator, appeared in the hallway doorway. She looked from Damon's wet cuff to Malik and then toward the planter where I was hiding. Damon tried to move past him. A second SUV stopped behind the first. Cassian stepped into the rain. He did not look at Damon. "Selene." I rose slowly. My legs nearly collapsed beneath me. Cassian walked toward me and stopped several feet away. Then he lowered himself onto one knee. "May I touch you?" I nodded. He placed his coat around my shoulders. When he saw my face, something cold moved through his expression, but he did not turn toward Damon. "This man is abducting my wife," Damon announced. "She has anxiety, she has been drinking, she has been obsessed with him for years." Cassian did not answer for me. He looked only at me. "Where do you want to go?" No one had asked me that all night. I looked at Damon, then at the medical vehicle pulling through the gates. Hospital. I walked to it on my own. Malik, Miriam, and the medical team watched as I climbed inside. Damon could not pull me back without showing everyone exactly who he was. As the doors closed, I saw him take out his phone. He was not calling to ask whether I was alive. He was calling the police to report that his unstable wife had been kidnapped by Cassian Rourke. The doors sealed and the sound of the rain disappeared. I had escaped Damon that night. I had not yet escaped the story he had built about me. Chapter 2. The man everyone feared believed me. The medical vehicle reached Lakeview Memorial Hospital at 10:07 that night. By then, the right side of my face had swollen enough that speaking felt like moving broken glass. A nurse cut away the damp edge of my dress sleeve, wrapped me in heated blankets, and asked the same questions twice to make sure my answers did not change. Cassian followed us into the hospital, but when Dr. Hannah Keene asked to examine me alone, he stopped at the doorway. "I will be outside," he said. He did not ask her to keep the door open. He did not insist that one of his people remain in the room. He simply stepped back and let the door close. Dr. Keene was 43, with tired eyes and a voice that never became impatient. She checked my pupils, pressed gently along my jaw, and cleaned the cut at my temple. The scans showed a mild concussion and a deep mandibular contusion, but no fracture. The cut at my temple measured just under an inch. Bruises were already forming around my right wrist and along the inside of my thigh. My body temperature was low from sitting in the rain. Dr. Keene documented each injury before she asked the question I had spent years avoiding. "Who did this to you?" The answer rose automatically. I fell. It was the answer Damon had trained into me. I had fallen against the bathroom counter. I had slipped near the basement stairs. I had bruised easily. I had suffered a panic attack. I had mixed medication with wine, even when I had not touched alcohol. Dr. Keene did not challenge me. She turned the examination mirror slightly so I could see my face. One side of my jaw was swollen. Dried blood marked my hairline. The woman in the glass looked frightened and exhausted, but she did not look confused. I remembered Damon standing over me in the rain. I remembered him promising to finish the other side of my face. "My husband hit me." The words came out unevenly, but they came out. Dr. Keene held my gaze. "Thank you for telling me." She wrote down exactly what I said. A nurse photographed the injuries with my consent. Then Dr. Keene contacted the hospital's domestic violence advocate and explained that a detective would probably need to speak with me because Damon had already reported an abduction. Detective Nadia Brooks arrived shortly after midnight. She was 46 and wore a dark coat over plain clothes. She looked at my chart, then at the closed door beyond which Cassian and Malik were waiting. "I know who brought you here," she said. Her tone was not accusing, but it was careful. I nodded. Nadia sat across from me and placed a recorder on the table. "Did you call Cassian Rourke voluntarily?" "Yes." "Did he take your phone or identification?" "No." "Has he prevented you from contacting your family?" "No." "Did he tell you what to say tonight?" "No." "Why did you call him instead of the police?" "Because I did not think Damon would give me enough time to explain." Nadia asked about the 2 earlier police visits to our house. I told her Damon had described me as intoxicated and emotionally unstable. I told her there had been no independent witnesses and that I had denied being hit. She did not promise that everything would be different now. She only said that Damon's kidnapping complaint made it important to document my decisions clearly. I gave a formal statement. I said I had asked Cassian to come. I said I had chosen to leave. I said I had chosen the hospital. Before Nadia left, she gave me a case number and told me not to delete any messages, emails, or voicemails from Damon or my family. By morning, my body ached in places I had not noticed the night before. A domestic violence advocate brought me a list of 3 family law attorneys. I chose Evelyn Shaw because her profile mentioned protective orders and financial abuse. She arrived before 10 wearing a charcoal suit and carrying a narrow leather folder. Evelyn was 48 and did not waste time pretending the situation was less serious than it was. She reviewed my hospital records, Nadia's case number, and photographs of my injuries. Then she explained what would happen next while placing documents in front of me one at a time. I signed permission for her to obtain the complete emergency room file. I signed an affidavit describing the punch, the threat, and Damon's statement about what would happen if he drove me home angry. Evelyn instructed me to preserve every message and avoid responding directly to Damon. She explained that retrieving my belongings from the house in Winnetka would require a civil standby or an arrangement through counsel. The house could not simply be transferred or locked against either spouse overnight. Our accounts, debts, and any disputed business credit would be handled separately through family court and discovery. Cassian waited until Evelyn finished before offering to cover the retainer. I looked at him from the hospital bed. The agreement stays in my name. Of course, I make the decisions. Yes. And if you lend me money, it is written down. No favors, no conditions. Cassian nodded once. Evelyn drafted a short emergency loan agreement with no interest and no requirement that I live with him or continue any personal relationship. Cassian signed it without reading the final page twice. That mattered more than I wanted to admit. Damon had spent years making every kindness feel like a debt. Cassian was helping me create a record proving this one was not. After I was discharged, he gave me 3 options: a secured hotel suite, a safe house outside the city, his penthouse in Gold Coast. I chose the penthouse because it had the strongest security, but I named my conditions before entering. I wanted a separate room, no cameras inside it, no one entered without knocking, no one touched my phone. I could leave whenever I chose. Cassian agreed before I finished. He showed me a diagram of the cameras in the common areas and the controls for the alarm in my room. Then he placed the bedroom key in my hand. He did not ask me to tell him everything. That evening, I sat at the kitchen counter with an ice pack against my jaw while Cassian made coffee. We had met in May 2017. I had loved him for almost 3 years, but by February 2020, I could no longer imagine a future surrounded by security details, hidden meetings, and federal investigations. I had asked him not to find me. He had obeyed. "Why did you never check?" I asked. "Not even once." Cassian set the coffee in front of me. "Because you asked me to leave your life. I loved you enough to obey." The answer hurt in a place Damon had never reached. I told Cassian I had wanted something ordinary. I met Damon in August 2020. We became engaged the following March and married on September 18, 2021. Damon had not hit me at first. By the end of 2021, he was squeezing my wrists and blocking doors. In June 2022, he struck me for the first time. By January 2023, I had left my job at Alder and Lane Interiors after months of hearing that work made me unstable and difficult to live with. The hardest part to admit was not the violence. It was the shame. I had left a man the world considered dangerous and married one the world considered respectable. When the respectable man became cruel, I could not bear to admit how wrong I had been. Cassian did not tell me I had chosen badly. "You wanted peace," he said. He learned how to look like it. My phone had been vibrating for hours. Talia called again. My mother texted that Damon was terrified for me. My father ordered me to contact the police and get away from Cassian. Then Damon sent an email to the entire family. He described me as anxious, emotionally unstable, and prone to drinking under stress. He said I had once formed an obsessive attachment to Cassian and was now being exploited by a dangerous man. Evelyn read the email that afternoon. "This was not written last night," she said. She showed me the file history Damon had accidentally attached through a shared family account. Part of the language came from a draft created in March 2024. 8 months before the wedding. Damon had been preparing the story of my instability long before I tried to leave him. On November 11, Evelyn obtained an emergency order of protection lasting 21 days with a hearing scheduled for December 2nd. Damon was prohibited from contacting me, using other people to reach or follow me, or approaching the place where I was staying or working. The order did not make him guilty. It only created a temporary line he was not allowed to cross. Minutes after Evelyn called with the news, Nadia contacted me. Damon had given police old emails in which I wrote that I could not control my emotions. I remembered every one of them. They had been written after arguments when Damon stood over me and refused to leave until I apologized for crying. Now he was using those apologies to demand an investigation into Cassian for kidnapping and coercive control. Damon no longer needed to drag me home himself. He was trying to convince my family and the system to carry me back for him. Chapter 3. The Story He Built About Me. On November 12, I finally answered Talia's call. She picked up before the first ring finished. Selene. Her voice was tight, caught somewhere between fear and suspicion. Are you alone? Yes. Is Cassian in the room? No. That answer did not relax her. Talia told me Damon had spent most of the previous 2 days at our parents' house. He arrived each morning with folders under his arm and concern arranged carefully across his face. He showed them old emails I had written after arguments. He brought a printed list of my anxiety prescriptions. He had a photograph from the wedding showing the untouched champagne glass in front of me, but from the angle he chose, no one could tell it was untouched. He also had videos. Short clips of me crying in our kitchen or bedroom. None of them included the 20 minutes before the camera started. None showed Damon blocking the door, taking my phone, or repeating the same accusation until I broke down. He says Cassian is keeping you isolated, Talia said. Mom thinks you need to come home and get treatment. I am not coming home, Selene. I am trying to understand. No, you are trying to decide which man sounds more believable. She went silent. I did not argue further. I sent 4 files. Photographs from the hospital, my discharge summary, Detective Nadia Brooks's case number, the emergency order of protection. For nearly a minute, neither of us spoke. Then Talia began crying. Did Damon do that to your face? Yes, at my wedding, on the north patio. Her breathing changed. I saw him leave the table after you. I waited. He came back alone, she continued. His cuffs were wet. He said you had an episode and left before he could stop you. He lied. I know. The words came quietly, as if saying them louder might destroy what remained of her certainty. I told her not to confront Damon and not to tell our parents we had spoken. What do you need me to do? It was the first useful question anyone in my family had asked. Call Lucas Bennett. He filmed the wedding. Tell him to preserve every raw file. Then contact North Shore Country Club and ask them not to overwrite any security footage. How long do we have? Possibly 30 days, maybe less. Noah helped her. He worked in investment analysis and understood the difference between a polished final video and original files with timestamps and transfer records. At first, he worried that turning over footage would drag their marriage into a public scandal before it had even begun. Talia told him the scandal had already happened. Hiding it would only protect the person who caused it. Noah agreed to help verify the metadata. My mother called less than an hour later. Where is Cassian keeping you? Her first question told me Damon was still controlling the conversation. He is not keeping me anywhere. Then tell me where you are. No. Selene Damon has never behaved violently in front of us. I closed my eyes. He did not need to hit me in front of you. He only needed you to believe him afterward. My mother's voice hardened. You know what kind of man Cassian is. I know what Damon did. Those are not separate issues. They are tonight. I told her I would not provide my address, meet with the family, or discuss Cassian while they continued passing information to Damon. She said I was cutting them off. I told her I was setting a boundary. My father sent a message afterward saying Damon was a respected architect with 20 years of professional credibility, while Cassian was under federal scrutiny. Robert still believed status was evidence. Damon's title sounded more trustworthy to him than my hospital record. Evelyn arrived at the penthouse that afternoon with copies of our joint account statements and my credit report. I had spent years managing commercial design projects at Alder and Lane Interiors. I knew how to compare contracts, track revisions, and identify expenses that did not belong. For the first time since leaving my job, that part of my mind returned. I built a spreadsheet. Dates in the first column, amounts in the second, vendors in the third, what was happening in my life at the time in the fourth. The first pattern appeared quickly. $18,600 had been paid to a licensed private investigator named Colin Reese. The payments increased during the months when I had tried to reconnect with former coworkers, schedule interviews, or meet friends without Damon. I stared at the dates. He was paying someone to watch me. Evelyn leaned over the screen. With marital funds, there was more. $46,800 had moved from our joint accounts into accounts connected to Damon's business between 2022 and 2024. Then I found a business line of credit for $125,000. My electronic signature appeared on the application. I had never signed it. Evelyn did not speculate about criminal charges. She sent a preservation notice to the lender, disputed the signature, and marked the account for divorce discovery. "We document first," she said. "We do not make claims we cannot prove yet." A second thread began forming inside Kessler Finch Architects. Leah Park, the company's controller, contacted Evelyn after noticing several payments to Colin Reese had been recorded as client development. Leah did not send confidential documents. She only confirmed the irregularity and said the firm was considering an internal review. Everything else would have to come through an audit subpoena or formal company process. That same evening, Talia called again. "We have the footage." Lucas Bennett had preserved the raw files. The patio camera did not capture the punch. Damon had positioned me beyond its angle. But the hallway camera showed him following me at 9:12. At 9:14, he grabbed my wrist. Then he blocked the patio door. At 9:26, he returned to the ballroom alone. Miriam Sloan confirmed that his cuffs were wet and that he instructed her to tell guests I had become ill. The footage did not show everything. It showed enough to prove his story was false. 2 days later, Evelyn received a call from a woman named Adrienne Cole. Adrienne was 40 and had been engaged to Damon in 2018. He had told me she was unstable alcoholic and obsessed with him. He said she bruised herself and threatened to destroy his reputation. Adrienne brought an urgent care record, photographs of bruises around her wrist and ribs, and a police incident report that had never led to charges. Then she played a voicemail. Damon's voice filled Evelyn's office. "I am sorry I held you too hard. You would not listen. Look what you made me do." The room seemed to shrink around me. It was not a phrase Damon had created on the patio. It was a script. He had used it before me. "I believed him about you," I said. Adrienne looked at me without anger. "That is why he told you. He needed the next woman to help isolate the last one." "Why are you doing this now?" "Because I do not want him to use the same story to erase another woman." That night, I learned Cassian had contacted an investor connected to Kessler Finch and warned him to distance himself from Damon. Cassian admitted it immediately. "I wanted to remove one of his protections. You did not ask me." His expression changed, but his voice remained controlled. "I thought it would help. If you use your power to destroy him, he will tell everyone this is two men fighting over me." Selene. I did not leave one man who made every decision for me just to let another man do it for better reasons. Silence settled between us. Damon would have punished me for speaking that way. Cassian opened a folder on the table and slid it toward Evelyn. "These are all the reports my people collected. No one contacts Damon, his partners, or his investors again without her approval." Then he looked at me. "You said no. That is the end of it." Later that evening, Malik called us into the security room. A sedan had appeared twice near the building. Colin Reese had also been seen following Talia's car. The camera enlarged the driver's face. It was Damon. He did not know which apartment I was in. He was watching Malik's vehicle and the building he believed Cassian was using. The license plate and time were recorded, but Damon drove away before Nadia arrived. He had not found my door yet. He had found the building, and I knew he would not remain across the street forever. Chapter 4. He came looking for control. The footage from the sedan was added to Evelyn's hearing file the next morning. Detective Nadia Brooks reviewed the license plate, the timestamp, and the 2 passes Damon had made around the building. "It helps establish a pattern," she said. "But one appearance near a public building is not enough for an arrest. We need direct contact, repeated surveillance, or evidence tying Colin Reese to Damon's instructions." I understood what she meant. The law needed a line Damon had clearly crossed. The problem was that Damon had always been careful about where he placed his feet. By November 19, the walls around him had begun to close anyway. Talia stopped answering his calls. My parents had finally watched the country club footage and could no longer repeat his version without hearing how weak it sounded. Family court temporarily restricted unusual withdrawals from our joint accounts. Kessler Finch Architects began preparing an internal review after Leah Park confirmed questionable expenses. Adrian signed an affidavit describing Damon's behavior during their engagement. The December 2nd hearing was less than 2 weeks away. Every part of Damon's life that had helped him control me was beginning to move without his permission. That was when I began therapy with Dr. Elise Warren. She was 52 and never asked me why I had not left sooner. Instead, she asked what my body did before my mind recognized danger. I told her I startled whenever the penthouse elevator opened. I checked my bedroom lock 3 or 4 times before sleeping. I positioned myself where I could see every exit. One morning, I dropped a coffee cup in Cassian's kitchen. It shattered across the floor. "I'm sorry," I said immediately. "I'll replace it." Cassian looked at the broken ceramic, then at me. "It is a cup." I was already reaching for the pieces. He crouched and stopped my hand before I touched a sharp edge. "You are bleeding." A thin line had opened across my finger. The cup was worth less than the apology Damon would have forced out of me. Cassian brought a bandage and said nothing else. Later that day, after Malik reported another car lingering near the building, Cassian told me I needed to stay inside. My shoulders tightened before I could stop them. He saw it. "You need to stay inside," I repeated. Cassian exhaled slowly. "I think it is safer, but the decision is yours." The correction mattered. I decided that if I was ever going to trust my own choices again, I had to begin making ordinary ones. I asked Evelyn to help me look at apartments in Lincoln Park, not because I wanted to leave Cassian that day, but because I needed proof that his penthouse was shelter, not a destination someone else had chosen for me. Damon responded to his shrinking control through Jonas Bell, his 51-year-old attorney. Jonas filed a request suggesting I undergo a mental health evaluation. The request relied on my anxiety prescriptions, old emails, and the videos Damon had recorded after provoking me. Evelyn answered with the emergency room report, the hallway footage, the March draft of Damon's prepared statement, and the evidence that a private investigator had been paid with marital funds. The judge did not decide the issue immediately. It remained pressure hanging over the December hearing. At Kessler Finch, Martin Finch placed Damon on administrative leave while the firm conducted an internal audit. Damon had not lost his partnership yet. He was given a formal opportunity to explain the payments to Colin Reese and the use of company accounts. That distinction mattered. Cassian was not destroying Damon's career. Damon was being asked to explain his own records. Then he found another way to reach me. He called my father from a new number. Damon told Robert that his attorney needed to know where legal papers could be delivered. He said he wanted to avoid having these served in public and creating an embarrassing scene. Robert did not give him an exact time or address. He did mention that I was working with Evelyn's office in River North. Talia overheard enough of the call to understand what had happened. She warned me immediately. "He made Dad think he was helping you," she said. "That is how Damon works. I'm sorry. Do not apologize again. Just do not give him anything else." Evelyn moved our meeting from her office to a cafe several blocks away. What none of us knew was that Colin Reese was still following Talia's car. Talia had agreed to bring Noah an external drive containing the wedding footage and copies of several documents. They met near the new location before my appointment. Colin followed her vehicle, identified the neighborhood, and sent Damon the location. Later, investigators would recover that communication. At the time, all I knew was that Damon appeared where he should not have been. On November 27, I left the cafe with Evelyn shortly before noon. Malik walked several steps behind me, close enough to intervene, far enough that I did not feel escorted like property. Cassian was not there. He was meeting with corporate counsel a few blocks away. I had just reached the entrance to a parking structure when I heard my name. Solène. Damon stepped from behind a concrete pillar. He looked different. His coat was wrinkled, his face was pale. The polished calm he wore in public had begun to crack around the edges. Malik moved forward. I raised one hand. "Stay close. Do not leave." Damon gave me a wounded expression. "I only want to talk. You are violating the order." "I am trying to save our marriage." "There is no marriage to save." His eyes flicked toward Malik. "Cassian has turned you against everyone who loves you. No, you did that." Damon softened his voice. "The hospital project is under review. My partners think I am some kind of criminal. Your mother cannot sleep. Your father is ashamed. Withdraw the petition and come home. We can fix this." I could hear Evelyn behind me calling Nadia. My phone was already recording from inside my coat pocket. "Why did you hire Colin Reese?" Damon blinked. "I did not. I have the payments. $18,600. His answer changed without hesitation. "I hired him to protect you." "From whom?" "From Cassian. You hired him before I called Cassian." Damon's jaw tightened. "I knew you were becoming unstable. You knew I was trying to leave." He stepped closer. Malik held out one arm. "Do not approach her." Damon ignored him. I said Adrian's name. The change was immediate. "That woman is insane. She has the same bruises, the same police report, the same voicemail. She lied. She recorded you saying the same words you said to me." Damon looked around. People had begun to slow near the sidewalk. A woman holding a grocery bag stopped. A delivery driver lowered his phone but kept the camera pointed toward us. For the first time, Damon was losing control of the setting. "You never lost control when people were watching," I said. "You always saved it for locked doors." His face hardened. "You sound exactly like Adrian." "I know." He moved toward me again. "The order is still active," I said. "I am your husband." "That does not give you access to me," Malik warned him once more. Damon lunged. His hand reached for my arm. I stepped back but did not run. Malik intercepted him, first catching his wrist and turning his body away from me. Damon swung with his free hand. Cassian appeared from the corner less than a minute later. Malik had alerted him as soon as Damon stepped from the garage. Cassian did not charge at Damon. He helped Malik bring him to the ground using only enough force to stop the struggle. No broken bones, no hand around Damon's throat, no threats. Malik called 911. Damon shouted toward the people watching, "He attacked me! Cassian Rourke attacked me!" The store camera above us had captured the entire approach. My phone had recorded every warning. Several witnesses had watched Damon cross the distance after being told to stop. Nadia arrived with uniformed officers. She checked the emergency order of protection, reviewed the recording, and spoke to Malik Evelyn and the witnesses separately. Damon was arrested for violating the order and attempting to grab me after repeated warnings. Nadia made it clear that stalking would be investigated separately through Colin's records, the payments, and the pattern of surveillance. As an officer guided Damon toward the patrol car, he looked back at me. "I am sorry." His voice was small now. I met his eyes. "You are not sorry you hit me. You are sorry there are witnesses and consequences now." He had no answer. The man who once promised no one would believe me was placed in handcuffs beneath 3 cameras and in front of strangers who had watched him choose violence. After the police left, Agent Owen Hale approached Cassian near the curb. I stood close enough to hear them. "The footage shows you stayed within reasonable force," Owen said. "That does not mean we have stopped watching you." Cassian looked toward me before answering. "I do not care what you think of me. I care that nothing I do gives Damon away to damage her case." Owen studied him, then walked away. Cassian had once built his reputation on what he was willing to do. That day he showed me what he was willing not to do. Damon had been arrested, but handcuffs could not erase the years my family had believed him over me. To finish this, I would have to walk into court and tell the truth in my own voice. Chapter 5. The Woman He Could No Longer Silence. On December 2, 2024, I walked into the Cook County Domestic Violence Courthouse wearing the navy suit I had once worn to lead project reviews at Alder and Lane Interiors. It was not new. Cassian had not bought it. Damon had never approved of it because he said the shoulders made me look severe. That morning, severe felt useful. Evelyn walked beside me carrying the hearing file. Cassian entered several steps behind us and sat in the second row. He did not join us at counsel table. He did not speak to Damon. He did not try to turn the hearing into a confrontation between 2 men. Damon sat beside Jonas Bell in a dark suit, looking rested and composed. For years, that appearance had been enough. It was not enough in a courtroom built around records. The hearing concerned the order of protection. It did not decide our entire divorce car, the disputed line of credit Damon's partnership, or the criminal case arising from his arrest. Those matters had their own procedures. That morning was about whether Damon remained a threat, whether he could contact me, whether he could use other people to reach me, and whether I could retrieve my belongings without facing him alone. Evelyn began with Dr. Hannah Keene's emergency room report. She entered the photographs of my swollen jaw, the cut at my temple, and the bruises on my wrist and thigh. Then came the footage from North Shore Country Club. The video did not show Damon's fist striking my face. It showed him following me into the hallway. It showed his hand closing around my wrist. It showed him blocking the patio door. It showed him returning alone 12 minutes later. Miriam Sloan confirmed that Damon's cuffs were wet and that he told her I had become ill and left voluntarily. Then Evelyn introduced the email Damon had sent to my family and the earlier draft created in March. The judge studied the dates. Damon had prepared the language describing me as unstable 8 months before the wedding. The payments to Colin Reese came next. $18,600 taken from marital funds and paid to a private investigator who had followed me and Talia. The prosecutor would decide later whether those records supported additional criminal charges. For the hearing, they showed that Damon had used another person to track me while the emergency order was in effect. Talia took the stand. She looked toward me once before facing the judge. She confirmed Damon had left the table after I did. She confirmed he returned alone with wet sleeves. She repeated what he had told her, that I suffered an episode, had been drinking, and left before he could help me. Then Evelyn asked why Talia believed him. Talia swallowed. Because I did not want my wedding destroyed. He sounded calm, and Selene was gone. Believing him allowed the party to continue. There was no long apology, only the truth. My sister's silence had not caused Damon's violence, but it had given him room to control what happened afterward. Adrian did not testify in person. Evelyn submitted her affidavit and the voicemail through the procedure approved by the court. Damon's recorded voice filled the room. "I am sorry I held you too hard. You would not listen. Look what you made me do." The judge did not treat Adrian's experience as automatic proof of what happened to me. It showed a repeated method. The same accusation, the same denial, the same transfer of responsibility. Jonas stood and argued that Cassian was manipulating me. He described the security team, the penthouse, and Cassian's federal scrutiny. He suggested that I had replaced one controlling relationship with another and could not make independent decisions. Evelyn did not defend Cassian's character. She returned to the evidence. Did Cassian sign Selene's name on a business line of credit? Damon did not answer. Did Cassian use marital funds to hire Colin Reese? Jonas objected. The judge allowed Evelyn to continue. Did Cassian create a draft describing Selene as unstable in March 2024? Damon's expression tightened. This hearing was not about proving Cassian was a good man. It was about proving what Damon had done. When Evelyn told me it was time to speak, I stood. My legs trembled, but my voice did not. Damon did not lose control, I said. He always knew when someone could see him. He followed me to a part of the patio where the camera could not record the punch. He came back into the ballroom calm, because he knew everyone would believe the calm person. I looked at the judge, not at Damon. He prepared a story about my mental health before I ever left. He used money to watch me. He used my family to reach me. He made people focus on how frightened I looked instead of what he had done to make me afraid. I did not ask the court to repair my life. I asked for space to repair it myself. I requested a longer no-contact order protection from third-party communication, a civil standby, to retrieve my belongings and clear restrictions against surveillance or approaching my home and workplace. The judge extended the order of protection and imposed those restrictions. The criminal charges remained with the prosecutor. The disputed credit and marital property remained in family court. The company expenses remained with Kessler Finch's internal audit. For the first time, Damon could not gather every problem into one room and talk until people became confused. Each record had gone to the place designed to examine it. During the next 6 weeks, consequences arrived through envelopes, meetings, and signatures. Damon no longer controlled. Kessler Finch completed its review. Leah Park provided records through the firm's formal process. The board confirmed that Damon had paid Colin Reese through company accounts labeled personal surveillance as client development and failed to disclose legal risks affecting the hospital project. Damon was allowed to respond. His explanations did not match Colin's invoices or reports. On January 15, 2025, the partnership was terminated under the firm's agreement. Damon lost his position on the $86 million hospital project. Cassian did not destroy his career. Damon documented the destruction himself. In April, Evelyn called while I was leaving a therapy appointment with Dr. Elise Warren. Damon had accepted a plea agreement arising from the November 27 arrest and the conduct investigators could prove. He received 18 months of probation, 120 hours of community service, mandatory participation in a batterer intervention program, and a 3-year no-contact order. The court ordered $31,400 in restitution for uncovered medical costs, lost income, replacement, security, transportation, and other direct losses accepted by the prosecutor. The $46,800 transferred from our accounts and the disputed $125,000 line of credit remained part of the divorce and fraud review. They were not erased. They were simply handled in the correct case. I had filed for divorce on November 12. Temporary financial orders prevented unusual withdrawals while discovery continued. The house in Winnetka was never seized by Cassian or transferred overnight. It remained marital property. My separate contribution to the down payment was traced through bank records. On July 18, 2025, I signed the final divorce decree. The house sold for approximately $1,310,000. I recovered my separate contribution of $145,000 and received my agreed share of the remaining marital estate. After signing, I changed my name back to Solène Avery. I did not do it to pretend the marriage had never existed. I did it because the name was mine before Damon and still belonged to me afterward. My parents asked to meet. Elaine said she had not known Damon hit me. "You did not know about the punch," I said. "But you saw me leave my job. You saw me stop visiting friends. You saw bruises that always came with complicated explanations." She began to cry. I wanted to believe the easier version. Robert admitted he trusted Damon because he was successful, educated, and calm. He had interpreted my fear as evidence that I was unreliable. I did not forgive them immediately. There would be no Sunday dinners for a while. They would not discuss Cassian as a way to avoid discussing Damon. They would not use Talia to obtain information. They would not ask me to move on so the family could feel comfortable. Talia did not pressure me. She helped me move, provided footage whenever Evelyn needed it, and stopped explaining what she had intended. In February, I returned to Alder and Lane Interiors part-time. By May, I became Director of Project Recovery. My job was to read troubled contracts, rebuild failing timelines, and find the details people hoped no one would notice. I rented an apartment in Lincoln Park. I signed the lease myself. The accounts were in my name. The first key belonged only to me. Near the end of the divorce, I invited Cassian over. He stood outside even though the door was open. "Why are you waiting? You said no one enters unless you invite them." I held out a spare key. He did not take it immediately. "Are you sure?" The night of Talia's wedding, I had called him because I needed to survive. Now I had my own home, money, work, attorney, boundaries, and the ability to walk away. "I called you that night because I needed to survive. I'm here now because my life belongs to me again, and this time I'm choosing you." Cassian accepted the key. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life making sure the choice remains yours." I took his hand and pulled him across the threshold. The door closed behind us. The key remained in my hand. Damon had taught me to believe safety meant doing everything correctly, enough to prevent his anger. It took me nearly 4 years to understand that real safety meant knowing the door opened only when I chose to open it. If the police and your own family had failed to protect you before, would you have made that call to Cassian? Or would a man with that much power still feel like another risk? Tell me where you stand in the comments, and subscribe to stay for the next story.